Hello, and welcome to Mystic Dog Mama, the podcast for soul led dog mamas, where you'll discover how to best nourish your dog and yourself, mind, body, and soul. I'm your host, Dr. Alexia Meller. Sometimes the hardest part of caring for our dogs is knowing deep down that something isn't quite right, but not having the words, the knowledge, or the support to make sense of what we're seeing. Maybe your dog has started moving differently, slowing down on walks, or pushing their heads into you in a way that tugs just a little bit at your intuition. Maybe you've been dismissed before when you've raised concerns. Or maybe you're living in that messy, complicated space where you know that your dog is struggling, but you feel lost, guilty, or overwhelmed about what to do next. In this episode, I'm joined by Luisa Greig, a McTimoney therapist, Gallen myotherapist, and Reiki practitioner who has spent years helping dogs and their humans navigate the complexities of chronic pain and healing. Luisa brings a wealth of experience, not just in understanding how pain shows up in the body, but also in supporting us as guardians through the emotional toll that often comes with having a dog who is hurting. Together, we explore how to spot subtle signs of pain in your dog, whether that be physical, behavioral, or emotional. Why noticing trends over time and knowing your dog's normal can be a game changer. The hidden ways that chronic pain and compensation can affect your dog's whole body. How to speak openly with your vet about pain, even when it challenges your holistic instincts. Free and low-cost things that you can start doing today to support a dog in pain. And how to choose the right therapist for your dog, and the powerful role of community in the healing journey. This conversation is about more than managing pain. It's about reclaiming your confidence, deepening your connection with your dog, and remembering that you're not alone in this. Now, before we get started, Stacy Renfrey and I want to let you know that we are so excited that we'll be taking Fetch on the road to the 2025 Mind, Body, Spirit Festival happening this November 14th through 16th at the Birmingham NEC here in the UK. The Mind, Body, Spirit Festival is the health, well-being, and spirituality festival, and we are beyond thrilled to be there sharing how to live healthily and holistically with our dogs. We're in great company too, with other practitioners, vendors, ranging from oracle readings, crystals, yoga, foodstuffs, you name it. If it's related to health, well-being, and spirituality, it'll be there. There are talks, stands, workshops, and food. I'm very excited about that part. As exhibitors, we're able to offer listeners to the podcast a 25% discount on a one-day standard ticket. So if you'd like to attend, check out the link and promo code in the show notes. All right, on that note, let's go. Hi, Luisa. Thank you for joining me on the Mystic Dog Mama podcast today. I'm so excited to talk with you.
Thank you for having me. I've been really looking forward to this.
Oh, thank you for coming on. I've been looking forward to it as well. And just to give the listeners a little bit of a background as to how this all came about, you had posted a really beautiful and meaningful and touching post on Facebook about the different aspects of caring for our dogs, and particularly the kind of emotional toll that having a dog with any kind of challenge, whether that's a physical challenge or a behavioral challenge, a
Mm,
health challenge, a chronic condition, etc., what that does for us as pet parents and the different kinds of support that we need around that. So we're definitely going to touch on that today because, as we've both said, this is an area of caring for our dogs that doesn't get enough airplay. And I think a lot of people can feel isolated and as if they
mm,
don't really know what steps to take or where they can turn. So we're going to touch on that today. But I'm also really excited to dive into your extensive experience of supporting dogs with physical pain and
mm,
how we can better do that and how we can better understand how pain presents in our dogs. So lots of juicy stuff today.
mm, mm. Where would you like me to start? It's such a huge topic, isn't it?
It is a huge topic. Well, I guess, first of all, how did you get into this line of work? I'm really curious what took you
Mm,
down this route and
mm.
also your specific focus on particular types of dogs.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so I think I was really lucky in some senses. So even as a child, animals, 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 that's what I want to do. I was very single-minded, so I wanted to be a vet. So I did chemistry, biology, physics at A level, realized that's really hard. So essentially, I didn't get the grades to get into vet school. It's a really, really highly competitive course to get onto. So I then did my degree in equine science instead. The intention being, I know I want to work with animals. I'm not quite sure what that's going to look like, but I hope that by the end of the degree, I will have narrowed down the specialism I want to get into. I was really interested in the vet science modules, the therapy modules. So I then knew I wanted to work in a therapeutic context with animals. So I then did my master's with the McTimoney College of Chiropractic in animal manipulation, which qualified me as a McTimoney therapist. So McTimoney is very gentle chiropractic style treatment. The course was very equine focused. So at that time, I didn't realize that you could make a career purely working and treating dogs. A real kind of pivotal moment was I was doing a lot of work experience at that time, and I was lucky enough to do some work experience at Greyfriars, which is an amazing hydrotherapy and rehab centre in Guildford in Surrey. Um, and from that, I got a Saturday job, and then I started working full time around my studies. And it sort of opened up this whole new world of, wow, okay, working with dogs full time is possible, because this was 20 years ago that the kind of options for careers in rehab and therapeutic modalities, there wasn't so much around. So that was a real kind of game changer for me. I think with the equine world, I'd felt a little bit like I was trying to push a square peg into a round hole, didn't quite fit into that world. So I kind of found my niche. Um, from then, so I was then out in the field treating, and I had a real sort of crisis of confidence, lots of anxiety, and I felt, okay, I need to do something about this. So I then found Garland Myotherapy, who at the time were Garland Therapy Centre, and trained in myotherapy, which is essentially massage. The idea being, if I've got more skills, I'm going to be able to offer a more comprehensive efficacious treatment, and build my confidence. And that was a real game changer. Amazing training, amazing peer support. So having that was really key for me. In terms of Reiki, I'd been interested in it since I was about 18, and it was always on the back burner. So I actually did my dissertation. A university friend of mine's mum was a Reiki practitioner, and she said, let's do something with horses, who, I don't know if you've ever seen a horse treated with Reiki, but they are so expressive. So that was really fascinating, but I didn't feel at the start of my career it was the right time to add it into practice, just in terms of the perception of it perhaps being a little bit of woo woo, and kind of the possible perception and how it might be received by vets. So I thought, okay, I'm really interested in it, but it's not the right time. So much to say. So then I had I say a chance meeting with a Reiki practitioner. This was pre-lockdown, so this would have been 2019. Did my first degree, then lockdown happened, so I did my second degree last summer, and it's just been profound. It just allows me to connect with animals in a much deeper way, um, help share my intention, help them trust me. One of the beautiful things about it is you don't need to touch the animal, so I can be across the room, so I can get them relaxed, and then I tend to position it as a tool to then allow me to work hands-on. But it's so much more than that. It works on a physical, emotional, and mental level. So that's been an incredible addition. Um, what else? I did my myofascial release training with Jo Rose, who is incredible. She's based in Oxfordshire. So that was, I think, 3 years ago. Again, just mind-blowing technique, very gentle but hugely effective. So having these different tools in my toolbox means that I can be adaptive, I can be versatile, not only in terms of, okay, how's the tissue feeling, this is too sore, this is too sensitive, but what does the animal like? Okay, this is really restricted here, this technique's not cutting it. So I really enjoy being able to sort of have all those tools at my disposal, and I don't sort of present them as a distinct, I'm going to do this treatment, I'm going to do this treatment. I just kind of mix it all up. I've got a little Fatizo red light therapy device as well, which is brilliant for tight muscles, arthritic joints, very versatile. So I really enjoy kind of having all these tools at my disposal.
Oh, I love that. No, and I think it's so interesting that you mentioned too. I also do Reiki and animal Reiki,
Mm,
and
mm,
I think it is one of those things that what when you start to practice it, first of all, it's getting you in the receptive mode as well to
mm,
connect more deeply with another person or the animal.
mm.
And it can be perceived as woo, but I feel like that is changing as more and more
Mm,
places are and more human health institutions are starting to see that as an
yes.
actual complementary therapy. I feel like that's then translating it into it being more accepted. But do you feel like the complementary therapies in general are being more accepted by vets and that you can work more in tandem with them, or is it still a struggle?
Um, I think my own personal experience of it is I probably still feel quite self-conscious about how I present it, both to clients, um, to vets. I don't particularly mention it. So my vet reports will be very kind of science based. There'll be very sort of bullet points with my clinical observations in terms of gait, posture, indicators of pain. So I will use it in my treatment. I think the general consensus is it's probably not going to work, but it's not going to do much harm. I think owners much more receptive, but I've had to learn how to present it. So quite often I'll say, you're just going to have to humor me. And I think in a treatment, the natural clients kind of want to keep the dog still, or they think they're kind of helping. So it's quite a departure for them for me to go, honestly, it looks like I'm doing nothing for 20 minutes, but just humor me. So I think it's having the confidence within myself to kind of frame it in a certain way. And then once they see how their dog responds, they're converted. I mean, even my friends that know what I do, that really kind of champion me, they sort of tongue in cheek say, I think you're a witch. We have no idea how it works, but it works. So I think vets training is so scientific, evidence based. I think I don't know if it will get kind of the credibility it deserves. I mean, even with kind of massage, you have some vets are like brilliant, great, really glad you're having that, and some vets that kind of they're just not, there's not that awareness because it's not in their training. And I think in terms of their mindset, kind of scientifically proven evidence-based medicine, it's a real departure from that. So I think the short answer is probably no. um, I think it's different if you have a good working relationship with a vet. I've got an incredible pain management vet specialist that I use, and she actually uses Reiki as well. So I think some of it is about your sort of professional tribe, and if you've got the trust in that working relationship with the vets in your area.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, we even see it on the nutrition side of things too,
Mm,
where some vets will kind of poo-poo that makes any kind of a difference, or
mm,
that,
mm,
doing fresh
mm,
food is, I mean, we face those challenges within kind of arguing for the importance of fresh food over kibble, for example, or the hydrolyzed diets, that kind of a thing.
mm,
So I can only
mm,
imagine that it's a similar sort of thing for you with complementary therapies.
mm.
But I guess off the back of that, I'm sort of curious how you guide pet parents to have those more difficult conversations with their vets when they might be getting pushback from their vets
Mm,
about the need to pursue any other kind of therapy. Do you have any
mm.
suggestions for people on broaching that?
Yeah, that's a really, really, really good question. And you might have to rein me in if I have a habit of going off on tangents. So
Go for it. We
um
love
a,
a tangent.
a lot of the trouble is I can't remember what the original question was. So a lot of my contact comes from clients directly rather than vets. So I think that the kind of cornerstone of my communication with vets is the reporting. So I feel like having that foundation of here's the report with all the kind of scientific stuff, the signs of chronic pain, what I'm seeing, gait, posture, movement wise, they can see that I've got the anatomical knowledge. I think that then gives them a level of kind of confidence and trust in me, and I can sort of hopefully guide um, that conversation or that treatment protocol a little bit, because I think vets are up against it. They have 10-15 minutes. um, they just don't have the time to look at gait, posture. Their training, I wouldn't say they are particularly kind of trained in chronic pain as opposed to sort of acute pain. So it's a really important part of what we do, that reporting. We're able to gather information about the dog at rest, their habits through our questionnaire, talking to the client, pictures, videos. So I think then kind of there's a level of, oh, okay, there's a level of respect there for what we do. um it can be a fine line because you obviously need to maintain a level of professionalism. However, quite often there is a gap in terms of how, for example, chronic pain is currently being managed or perceived, which is a massive thing, and kind of where we need to be. A lot of what we do is educating owners. So I try to explain kind of what's actually going on without being too technical. I do rely on canine arthritis management is an incredible resource. I'm lucky enough to have known Hannah for years. I think what she's done is phenomenal. And I think Cam has been such an amazing driving force in getting the word out there with chronic pain. So quite often I will send owners booklets, resources for them to read and go, look, this just backs up what I'm saying. Get a cup of tea, have a read in your own time. So I think, and also, I think kind of maybe once the vets have been presented with this information and there's been a bit of guidance without sort of stepping out of my lane, they're maybe more kind of amenable to, okay, we can try this. Having a pain management specialist vet within my sort of professional tribe has been essential, absolutely essential. So I would urge clients to seek a pain management specialist vet, and I think um, a lot of kind of dog owners and some vets don't even know that they exist. So again, it's knowledge, it's awareness. I think some owners can feel a bit kind of lost, if they've been to the vet and they know something's up, but maybe that perception isn't um they're not on the same page as the vet, and they go, I know something's up. But a lot of what we deal is with is what we call subclinical. So for example, I'm not treating muscular injuries as such. or muscular issues that are going to show up on an x-ray, on an MRI. A lot of it is chronic um, compensatory wind up that's not a clinical condition or a diagnosable condition. So it's this kind of almost intangible thing in terms of, but there's no diagnosis, so it doesn't exist kind of thing. So does that answer the question? Have I gone off on a tangent?
No, it's a perfect tangent though, and actually, I think it's a great. So yes, in terms of having that conversation, but with their vet, and when they suspect that there is a problem, and having you come on board with the more clinical
Mm,
things that can bridge that gap in the conversation
mm,
with the vet.
mm,
But then I think you're also touching on something that I'd love to dive into. I think now is a great time to do that.
mm,
The signs of chronic pain, because like you said, that's going to
mm,
be different than if you see your dog have an actual injury, something you see it happen and you see them limping or something like that. That's a more recognizable thing, and we know,
mm,
okay, go to the vet or go see somebody about helping
mm,
that. But I think often the signs of chronic pain can go so unnoticed
mm.
because dogs are just absolute masters at hiding pain as well. So I wondered if we could dive into a little bit what some of the maybe not so familiar signs of chronic pain might be. How would somebody notice that in their dog?
Yeah.
Or what are some questions they can be asking themselves and their vets to kind of have that lens of, is
Mm.
my dog experiencing chronic pain?
That is such an important and good question. So, I just want to start off by saying I don't know if we can share some links to resources in
Yeah, in the
your
show notes?
group. Yeah,
Sure.
because
Yep.
I think that would be so helpful. So,
Yep.
there are several different kind of tools you can use. I've got a questionnaire that I send to clients. Cam has got Canine Arthritis Management, has got some amazing resources. There are a few kind of standardized, recognized tools out there. I think it's the Liverpool pain scale, but um, I'll send those to you so we can share them. But there are so many. I think as an overview, what I would say is it's a lot more accurate to look at your dog at rest. What do they do at home in a non-stimulatory environment? So not out on a walk, not when there's treats, there's other dogs, there's people, there's toys, there's exciting stuff, because that stimulus and kind of reward and increased adrenaline levels massively override pain. I mean, we've all heard stories of kind of horses with broken legs kind of completing races and all that kind of stuff. And um, so I would say look at the kind of subtle things. So I've actually got a list here. There are so many. It's going to be difficult to sort of get through them all, but I will do my best. Okay, so if we sort of categorize them, sorry, I'm just going to make sure this is plugged in because I don't think I'm charging. Sorry,
That's
guys,
okay.
2 seconds. The other thing with chronic pain is it's gradual, it's insidious, it creeps up on you, especially when we see dogs every day. We don't notice these changes or, oh, they've stopped doing that. We don't realize till maybe they're feeling better and they start doing it again. So if we look at kind of movement, slow movement is really important to watch because they can disguise things, even at a fast walk, let alone a trot or a canter, they can disguise things. So look at just how they mooch around the house. Do they groan when they get up and down? Is that movement fluid or is that quite effortful? Are they kind of staggering their front legs and going down really carefully? Do they look like they're not wanting to kind of load a certain area of their body? Are they really fidgety at night, like they just can't get comfortable? Do they always choose to lay on one side as opposed to the other? Look, I mean, videos are amazing. You don't need to be kind of a physio or a professional to assess movement. But I always say if you feel something's off, it usually is, but you've caught it at a much before it's escalated. into that acute pain. So videos, pictures are really, really helpful. Suddenly waking up looking distressed, suddenly kicking a back leg out, suddenly turning around to look at a body part and nibbling at it, like the hips, fur disturbance over a certain area, um, propping the neck or hanging it over the side of their bed or sofa. Another thing is it's important to gather all this information so that we can accurately assimilate it and interpret it. So a couple of signs on their own, you don't have enough context to interpret. But if you've got that going on, and then also kind of their gait looks a bit odd, and they're also doing this and this, and also this is really sensitive, then you've got a pretty good idea of, yeah, I think there's some pain. So it's one of the skills of being a therapist to kind of pull all this together and interpret it. What else? From a behavioral perspective, they can be a little bit more withdrawn in the home. They might not want to kind of sit with you of an evening or interact, want to be cuddled, played with, interact with other dogs. They might take themselves off. They might become a little bit kind of grumbly or kind of less tolerant with other dogs or being touched. This can be reflected out on walks as well in terms of their interactions with people, other dogs. They might be more clingy. It just depends on the dog. So it's not a one size fits all type of scenario. Anal gland issues, again, sometimes that can be purely sort of anatomical, diet related, digestive related, but sometimes if they can't, for example, hold a squat when they're defecating, they don't clear the anal glands properly. So, for example, if a dog was having anal gland issues, I might go, do they walk along when they poo? Or this is going to sound really weird, but can you send me a picture of your dog doing a poo? And I always say, like, maybe do it in your garden, not out and about. But those snapshots of dogs performing certain movements are so helpful. So, for example, if a dog can't get their bum low and hold a squat, that they'll kind of stay higher but stick their neck out as a counterbalance, and that gives so much information. So posture and movement is massive. In terms of eating habits, even, are they leaving their food? What food are they on? Is it crunchy kibble? Is it soft food? Have they stopped yawning? Do they drink as much? Just like us, with a really tight, overloaded neck, that then translates up into our jaw, the top of our head, so that there are so many issues. What else? Sorry, bear with me a
No, this
second.
is fantastic.
There's just so many, and as I say, we'll put them up. That's just kind of off the top of my head. Chewing, licking and chewing and nibbling body parts is a massive one. So again, could be other causes like allergies, but they will do that when chronic pain is present. It's like us rubbing it better. Sometimes the pain can be referred, for example, if they're nibbling the forelimbs or the forepaws, it can be because of referred pain in the neck. So that can be quite a big one. And I think it's just opening up, the context of it. So, okay, maybe it's not allergies, maybe there is some pain there. Let's just start thinking about this in a different context. Even kind of sometimes they will shove their neck into their head for rubs into their lap. Sometimes they can do that when their neck's tight. The neck is um dogs have a really hard time with their necks because they compensate so heavily there. um Facial expression, even I've had clients say they look younger, and it's because if you imagine when we're feeling rubbish, we do this, don't we? um what, oh, there's so many. I'll link all the info, but there are so many things, so it's quite helpful to almost make a little diary. It doesn't need to be anything too complex. You can pick, say, 4 or 5 indicators for your dog and do a little tally day by day, so then you've got a quick visual access to kind of what's going on over time. So with chronic pain, monitoring over time is really important because it's so easy for that pain to get normalized, and for us as humans to have that big emotional roller coaster. So it's really good to see trends over time, both for our emotional kind of management, if you like, and also from a treatment perspective, kind of if this is our baseline, how are they responding to treatment, or how are they doing over time? Do we need some intervention? So that once you start kind of tuning in, there are so many things, and owners become obsessed with looking at their dogs, and I'm like, sorry, not sorry.
I love it. Thank you for sharing all of that, Louisa. And I think it speaks to a lot of what Stacy and I talk about within
Mm,
Fetch, which is, and I know we have a lot of people that kind of groan when we say tracking is your best friend, and it is for everything because it gives you
mm,
a sense of whether or not something actually is a pattern, or if
mm,
it's just a one-off, or is
mm,
it really, is it as bad now as it was 2 weeks ago? Because
mm,
we can sort of
mm,
assume that it is, but in reality, when you're tracking and you see, oh, actually, this was happening every day, but now it's only happening, once every 4 days, or that kind of a thing. It can
mm,
give you so much information
mm,
for yourself, but then
mm,
also when you, so like I was mentioning to you previously, and we talk about this a lot on the podcast and within Fetch, that Stacy and I are huge proponents of putting a team of support together for
mm,
your dog and for you. So when you're coming with that level of information, we can then help pull in the right professionals to help
mm,
support because like you said, there are crossovers between how symptoms might appear for digestive issues. The anal glands are a fantastic example of that
mm,
because that can
mm,
very much
mm,
be about,
mm,
at the core of it, a food intolerance.
mm,
Or it could be that there is physical pain or there's an anatomical issue that's going on. But when you bring to those conversations with professionals like us all of that other information,
mm,
we can piece the puzzle pieces together to get a better understanding of what's actually going on and then say, actually, I think it would be really great to bring Louisa into this conversation. It
mm,
sounds like it might not be digestive stuff. It could very well be referred pain, for example. So the
mm,
more that you can track that information, I know it sounds tedious, but like you said, it doesn't have to be
mm,
hours
mm,
a day, but just keeping a note of these things can be
mm.
so helpful and give
Yeah,
you the confidence to talk to professionals, to talk
yes.
to your vet.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we discussed off air that perception of pain can be massively subjective. So I think having these kind of records, whatever you're using, just helps to make it a little bit more objective. And just kind of looping back to communication with vets, I think that can be really helpful because even if they might not sort of be aware of therapy or unsure about how it can help, we can go, okay, well, after 3 treatments, XYZ indicators have reduced by half. Do you know what I mean? So we've got something tangible to kind of go back with and track. Um, I know we're going to talk about the emotional impact of caring for dogs with kind of chronic pain and other issues. And I think for owners, it can be really, really helpful to have that and go, oh, actually, they're not doing so bad. Because, for example, dogs with arthritis and chronic pain, the nature of the condition is they're going to have good days, they're going to have bad days. And having your team is so important. And dogs are living beings. They're not, their systems aren't compartmentalized. Kind of, I hope we're moving towards a more holistic approach rather than a kind of symptom focused
Mhm.
approach. And we all have our different areas of expertise, but there is overlap. So I think it's really important to um, know enough to know when to signpost and collaborate with other individuals and know how these pieces fit together, because you need everything in place to have a truly effective, management plan. So, for example, if I'm treating a dog but there's uncontrolled orthopedic pain, we have to get that under control. A, because ethically, and B, because um, you're just, I'm just going to be firefighting. I've got an amazing physio that I work with, and her level of knowledge is just incredible. And I would say, okay, I've done as much as I can do here for now. Let's get you into physio to get some foundational sort of conditioning, so the body's working in a more balanced way, which is hopefully going to mean you can see me less because I can treat. But if we've got the underlying way that the body's using itself because we haven't got strength or stability in this area, I'm going to be quite limited as to what I can do. The lifestyle and the exercise, the home environment, all of that needs to be in place. Otherwise, it's just not going to be effective. And the same goes for nutrition. It's so key.
It is so key. And I thought also think like you're alluding to with the work that you do, it has its limitations. So
Mm,
we were talking before we started recording about some of the kind of, I guess, like the darker sides or the more toxic sides of the
mm,
holistic dog care world, where
mm,
we can be really reticent to give our dogs pain medications because we don't want to
mm,
go down that route, and we'll try to find whatever supplement or food that we can
mm,
give. And those play their role. I'm not dismissing that by
mm,
any means. Absolutely, nutrition and supplements play a massive role in supporting the body.
mm,
And we want to do something for our dogs when they're in serious pain. And I wondered if you could
mm.
kind of touch on that aspect of how
Yeah,
of pain management.
absolutely. I mean, it's again such a big topic, important topic. We could have a whole podcast on this, but I would say that in my experience, potential side effects of drugs loom quite large in people's minds. And there's definitely a reluctance to put dogs on pain meds because of that. And I would say that the prevalence and severity and impact of chronic pain is generally massively underplayed. The kind of possible impact of the side effects are given much more kind of airtime. And when you compare the possibility of that to the impact of dogs being in chronic pain day in, day out. I mean, I'm very fortunate. I don't suffer with chronic pain. Occasionally, I will have a migraine flare up or a shoulder flare up. And after 2 days, I'm like miserable, angry, depressed, honestly feel like I can't cope anymore, which is like quite a low pain tolerance. But this is how our dogs are living day in, day out. And I think there's a lot of kind of phrases that are thrown around and myths, but I don't think people are truly connecting with that dog's experience. Um, I often talk about arthritis as a really good example of where um, you need pain management. So I have to be careful about how much I say because I'm not a vet. However, you can look on the CAM site. This is all kind of backed up information. So, for example, with arthritis, it's an inflammatory mediated degenerative joint condition. So, controlling that inflammation is the foundation of that. So, your kind of mainstay in managing that are your non steroidal anti inflammatory drugs. Um, so, I say to clients, not only are you helping control the pain, but in doing so, you're helping to control that inflammation, which is just going to hopefully try and sort of um, prevent that disease process escalating as quickly as it would with uncontrolled pain and inflammation. And with that comes in you can't just put your dog on meds and exercise as you'd like. You have to have that lifestyle stuff in place. So I try to tread a line between being understanding of people's concerns and helping them feel heard, but also stressing the um, importance of them, the role they play, the impact of kind of chronic pain. I think a lot of people kind of maybe don't realize how much pain their dogs are in. If a dog is on long-term medication and or they're over 10, go and get some bloods done every 6 months. That's generally good practice, just to check that the liver and kidneys are doing what they should. I know that possible reactions in terms of gastric reactions can really scare people, which I completely understand. It's horrible to see your dog like that. But there are a lot more options available now. And I think this is where, if again, absolutely not vet bashing, but if you feel like you would like more support in what options are available in terms of pain management, both drug based and non drug based, go and see a pain management specialist vet. It will be the best thing you can do for your dog. So, and chronic pain is really complex. I think sometimes there can be a feeling of, oh, well, they're on this one drug, whereas you need that comprehensive assessment and pain workup to identify all the sources and types of pain. With chronic pain, there are lots of disease processes within that, which means that the body perceives pain as a lot greater than is proportionate to the source of pain. So it's not uncommon at all to need a combination of drugs to target different pain pathways and mechanisms and sources of pain. So I can help treat the kind of secondary compensatory long-term muscular pain. But for example, in an arthritic joint, you need some pain relief that targets that. We know that the central nervous system just gets more and more and more sensitive with chronic pain. It differs from acute pain. In acute pain serves a kind of survival process. So if we touch a fire, we go ow and pull our finger away. So that prevents tissue damage. Whereas chronic pain, things have got a bit out of control there, where the body kind of gets used to it and it becomes part of the fabric of that dog's life, and they just learn to cope. I know some friends and clients that have got chronic pain conditions such as fibromyalgia, those types of disease. And I know that their doctors have said things to them like, well, if it was that bad, you wouldn't be able to go to work, or you wouldn't be able to do this. And it's like, but what choice do we have? What choice do our dogs have? They can't physically tell us, they just get on with it. But the trouble is, sometimes that can be misconstrued as, well, they're just getting old. And it's not, it's pain. We need to reframe what's going on here. And I think there's a sense of inevitability and being resigned to, well, there's nothing we can do. They're just getting old. There is so much you can do. And particularly if you act early, it's never too late. But if you act early, you are going to massively influence the long-term outcome. I think sometimes with pain relief, there's a feeling of, well, I don't want to give it till they really need it. But when you break down, what does that mean? To me, that means overt signs of pain, which mean that those kind of compensatory mechanisms, the dog's compensated up to the hilt and they've got nowhere else to compensate. So then there's an outward expression of kind of overt lameness, or they might suddenly slow down over a short period and seem to look really old. By the time a dog is showing overt signs of pain, they're 7 to 8 out of 10 painful. So 10 being unbearable, 0 being no pain. And if we go back to that arthritic disease process, if we were to act early, we can help interrupt that kind of inflammatory degenerative disease process. Whereas if we're waiting until a dog is really painful, you might not be able to get back to that where their pain's under control, because you've got all these mechanisms going on where the body's more and more and more and more sensitized. You've got more tissue damage. So it's going to be a lot harder to get it under control, and you can't reverse that bony damage that's occurred in regards to joint degeneration. So it's really important to act early. I know this is a really strong statement, but kind of if we look at, I don't know, cancer in humans, we wouldn't wait till it gets really bad to start treating. We need to look at pain as, right, let's catch this early, let's improve our dog's quality of life. Yeah, that's me on my soapbox.
I love it. Stay on it. Stay on that soapbox. It's important. Thank you for sharing that,
Mm,
because I agree with you. I mean, we see that in the nutrition side of things too, that people are really reticent to give
Mm,
pain relief for a number of reasons. But again, this is where I would say talking with your team is so important because if
mm,
we can better understand what your concerns are, there are a lot of those concerns that can be allayed by
mm,
maybe it's not really as big of an issue as you're maybe envisioning, or maybe there are other things that we can do. Certainly from in terms of looking at inflammation in the body, there's a lot that we
mm,
can do from a nutrition
mm,
side of things to help
mm,
support that, or even from a detox side of things,
mm,
if you do need to give medications where we can support the kidney and the liver. So and even from a microbiome perspective, if you're worried
mm,
about wiping out the microbiome, that we there are things that we can do to help support that as well. So I think it speaks to talking with all of us as your professionals, as your team about what your concerns are, so we can come up with a
mm,
joined up approach that is going to support your dog with what they need and make you feel better about the
mm,
choices that you're making.
mm,
But I think this touches on as well what we were originally going to be talking about, what kind of brought us to this, because I think what we've been discussing has laid the foundation for this is a stressful thing to have to be dealing with your dog. Like
massively.
the pain issue affects you as much as it does your dog. And again,
Yeah.
how do you navigate these big questions that you might have? How do you know that you're making the right decision? That can be really a
Mm,
heavy burden. And if you're looking at bringing in specialists and creating a team, I'm not blind to the fact and I'm not ignorant to the fact that there's a cost factor to that as well, which
mm,
can create another type of burden
mm,
that actually can put some people off seeking the help that they need because they're afraid of that. So I thought this
mm,
might be a good time to start to dive into those other aspects of how do we actually support ourselves through the challenges of dealing with a challenging dog.
absolutely. It's such a vital piece, and I think one that's not spoken about enough. And I think kind of I have a lot of clients where kind of when you're explaining things, it I feel it's so important to have that empathy and sensitivity um, with your clients because, as we said, chronic pain is challenging to assess. I mean, even as a professional, I see things that 10 years ago I wouldn't have seen. And I think once they have that realization, they go, oh my goodness, I had no idea. I hate the fact that they've been in pain and I didn't know. I feel like the worst dog owner. So I think there's a lot of guilt, there's a lot of shame. I think occasionally there can be a level of denial because it's just too painful for us to accept that our babies are in pain. I think there's a genuine kind of people don't see it, and that's no judgment whatsoever. I always kind of use the analogy of I remember so clearly when I was doing my training when we'd be doing gait movement assessments and the tutor would be like, okay, what can you see? And I'm like, nothing. Like it takes years and years to get your eye into posture and movement. So I think people genuinely don't see that their dogs are in pain. Um, I think I think you need to adjust it for each client and kind of read how that information is being perceived, kind of how softly you need to go, and kind of work out your kind of treatment approach based on that. So yeah, so I think it's really important to kind of bridge that gap both in terms of kind of practical things and knowledge and education, but also that empathy side of things. So I think just speaking to the cost side of things, I think I completely understand that, especially in this day and age, we're in a cost of living crisis. Um, so as part of, excuse me, what we do as therapists, there's so much that you can do that costs nothing or costs very little. So exercise adaptations, so things like avoiding high impact repetitive activities, splitting walks into two or three shorter walks, looking at terrain, putting some just cheap rugs from Amazon down in your floor, stair gates, all that will make such a difference. If I gave one tip, it would be weight management. That is just so key. I'll never forget, I had a client who was actually a hydrotherapist. She had a large breed dog with orthopedic issues, and she said 0.5 kilogram is the difference between him being lame and not lame. So weight management is huge, absolutely huge. I think we have kind of what we call a gold standard of care, and I think again there can be a lot of shame and guilt and embarrassment if clients can't meet that for whatever reason, whether it's financial, practical, time constraints. So I feel that again, there's sometimes it's a fine line, but we need to be understanding of that and go, okay, you live in a townhouse, your dog's going to go up and downstairs. We can't stop that. We can't ask you to move house. But why don't we look at a stair gate so they're doing it less? Or, okay, I might have an elderly client where they can't lift the dog in and out of the car or manage maneuvering a ramp. So I might go, okay, is there anywhere you could park that's kind of on a slope so they can get in from that? So I think it's really important to be realistic and practical and what's going to work in real life. And sometimes I will say to clients, kind of, okay, let's put your money and energy where it's going to get the best results. So I might teach them home massage techniques, which aren't a substitute for a professional treatment, but it might mean we can go a little bit longer with that between treatments, or they can doing a warm up and warm down for their dog before and after activity. I use a little red light therapy device called a Fatizo, which is they're about £300. So they're not cheap in terms of initial outlay, but I think in terms of kind of you can use them every day. I think in the long term, they're quite a good little investment. So that can be an option to use at home. Quite often, I will say to clients, okay, I think if we need to choose between therapies, this is more appropriate at the moment, or actually, I'm happy with where we're at. I don't think you need to see me for a couple of months. And I think I need to be careful about how I present things initially, because I think I'm really enthusiastic. I'm like, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this. And I think, okay, I need to put myself in the owner's shoes because they've called me for myotherapy. And I'm like, right, we need to do X, Y, Z. I don't want to overface them. So I'm still learning with all those kind of skills as a therapist. But I think I've realised, particularly in lockdown, people just being on the end of the phone and support without even doing anything in terms of treatment, people were so grateful for that. I mean, they couldn't get into the vets. I would say there was a trend towards kind of doing one main walk a day rather than splitting into a couple of walks. So kind of both the, hydrotherapy wasn't accessible. Acupuncture, they couldn't go in for whatever treatment. So there were a few dogs that were having pain flares, and just having someone at the end of the phone going, don't worry, we've got this. I think I know what's going on. Do this for a week, check in with me. I'm at the end of the phone. Like, it's so important. So important. Sorry.
That's all right. It is important. And I think it speaks to something that we have often lost sight of, which is
Mm,
that healing on every level happens in community.
mm,
It's not on your
yes.
own. And I think so creating those spaces like we're creating today, like we create in our Fetch First Light group and all of that, it's about creating a safe space for us to do all of this together and to be able to
Mm,
have those conversations and to learn
mm.
from one another because we're all learning.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I definitely learn from my clients. Um, and I hope that I create that safe space and
Right.
that empathy so that they can be open, because it's really important that I stay connected to
Yeah.
how owners are feeling so I can understand, support them. So the post that you reference, I was actually talking to some lovely, lovely clients of mine. I've known them for years. And I was like, how are you guys doing? And they were like, we're actually struggling emotionally. And then we sort of had a conversation around that. I know they won't mind me sort of discussing it without naming them. But they said, we feel guilty and we feel like our friends won't understand, our family won't understand. They asked not to be tagged in my post because they were like, we just don't want the backlash from our family of like, well, why are you doing this? Is it worth it? So it can be really, really isolating for people. So I think having someone to talk to that gets it, again, even though you're not doing anything kind of practically physically at that point, but just feeling heard and seen and understood is massive.
It is, it's huge. And also, and you'll understand this from being a Reiki practitioner as well, that
Mm,
our energy gets transferred to our dogs as well. So
mm,
if we're not prioritizing our own self-care, even if that's just calling up a friend who gets it and say, I just need to talk about how overwhelmed I am right now,
mm,
or it is going and seeking various therapies for yourself or finding whatever support system feels good for
mm.
you. But that helps your dog's healing journey when you're caring for yourself
100%.
too.
100%. And they're sensitive beings. They're very connected with us. They feel and take on our emotions. So absolutely. And I think as well, when you're caregiving, whether it's for an animal or a relative, you can feel guilty for taking time for yourself. And as a therapist, I do it. It's something I'm very much learning to kind of having boundaries and kind of going, no, I just need to switch my phone off. um it feels quite selfish because I just want to help. Do you know what I mean? But I think it's really important. And when you're with your dog day in, day out, your world becomes them, and it can be overwhelming. And then you can feel guilty, like, oh, I love my dog, so I shouldn't be feeling like this. And it all kind of builds up. So it's really important to have your doggy friends that get it, have your professionals that get it. CAM have a group called Holly's Army, which is their kind of sister group, and it's this wonderfully supportive, nurturing, safe space for dog owners to discuss whatever in terms of their condition. It might be sort of practical or clinical advice. The page is run by professionals, or it might be, I'm just feeling really crap at the moment. Can anyone empathize? So it's really important to just have those tools in place. Yeah, my clients that I mentioned, their dog is disabled, so they're quite limited as to kind of going out socially, which is fine for the most part. But I actually dog sat for them, and they went to a concert, and they said it was so lovely just to have a few hours of freedom and know he was safe and cared for, and we didn't realize how much we needed this. So it's super, super, super important. We can't pour from an empty cup.
Exactly, exactly. And I think we forget that. And I think especially when we've got maybe a challenging dog and those of us who take them on, I do believe that we bring them into our life experiences for a reason. But I think we
Mm,
also, those of us who are maybe more empathic might even choose those kinds of dogs because we
mm,
want to be able to provide them with a good life because we know that they often get overlooked, for example.
mm.
But you have to do that whilst also knowing that you have to create your own bucket, your own cup that you can hold stuff in for
Yes.
you in order to be able to do that. And
Yeah.
that's where I think too, thinking about a team for yourself and your dog before there's a big problem is really helpful. If you can create that network of support
Mm,
almost before you really need it, and it's
mm.
there for you. And I feel like that helps reduce the stress of when something happens. Oh my God, what do I do? Where do I go? Because you've got that support network right
Yeah.
there to go to.
Yeah. Complete. And I think that's the thing, kind of, people don't necessarily know what to do, where to go, that these types of professionals exist. And I think it's really tricky because I think, I don't know about you guys, but I feel that I'll get the odd referral from vets, but I think they have such a short consultation time that they just don't have the headspace. It's not on their radar to kind of refer to us. So I think with the vet being your kind of first port of call, it's, I think that kind of, where do I go? Where do I go for help? So I think kind of more visibility is really important. I think word of mouth is massive. I think kind of this is the upside of social media as well. I think that can be really helpful. I feel that um, kind of on my profile there's a really lovely community, and I always ask clients if I can post it then their friends can see it. It is that kind of ripple effect, but I still think there's a lot of work to be done in terms of not only finding a professional, but I'm not quite sure what my therapy my dog needs. How do I know I can trust this professional? What are their qualifications? Are they insured? What's their ethos? If you're not comfortable with something that's going on in a treatment, speak up. You know, don't don't kind of feel too shy. So I have quite a few clients contact me and they say, I'm really nervous about my dog's being treated. They're quite anxious. We might have had a negative experience either with a professional or otherwise. They might be a rescue dog. And it's really important to help clients feel safe and listened to. And okay, how can I support you? I will often say, okay, how do you want me to meet your dog? Would it be easier if we meet outside in the garden? Would you like me to scatter some treats? Tell me what I can do to make both of you feel comfortable, because it can be really hard to find a professional that fits not only for you but your dog, both kind of in terms of um the therapy they offer, but kind of what feels right, the right approach for your dog.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Do you have just as you were saying that, I'm wondering if you have any suggestions for for people of like some questions that they could ask a professional to kind of
Yeah,
ascertain if it's the right fit for them.
yeah, absolutely. So legally, every therapist needs vet consent before we can treat. I think there can be some confusion. We don't need a referral or recommendation from your vets. So ask if they get vet consent. If they don't, then that's actually illegal. Ask what qualifications they've got. Ask um, what professional bodies they're members of. Ask what CPD they do, which is continuing professional development. Ask about their experience. Ask about their sort of ethos in terms of treatment. They should outline kind of what's going to happen in a treatment, what they um, kind of clients will ask me kind of how many treatments do you think I'll need, and I can't give a specific answer when I start working with the dog because it depends how they respond, but they should be able to give a vague framework. So I will say something like, usually dogs need about 3 or 4 treatments at weekly intervals initially, and then we can start to space it out. It does depend on what's going on, the dog's age, how long an issue's been going on, if we need to get other professionals involved. So they should be able to give you transparency in that respect whilst not making promises. What else can I say? You should be able to stay with your dog while they're being treated. What else? What's their handling like? This is so, so, so important. I've only had to muzzle dogs 2 or 3 times, and that's been at the client's insistence. They shouldn't be restrained. I don't treat on a table, I treat at floor level so they can wander off, come back, once they've decompressed. If you feel like something isn't right handling wise, speak up, advocate for your dog. I know it's awkward, but they're your dog at the end of the day. What else? They should liaise with your other professionals. So they should be reporting to your vet of any other professionals involved in your case. What else? They should be able to kind of answer any questions you have about how the treatment works, what to expect in the treatment, kind of what happens next. I don't know if I've covered everything. I think that's the basics. They should have professional insurance as well. um, Trust your instincts as well. If something feels off, you don't have to continue. Um, you need to feel safe. You need to feel heard. You need to feel that the clinical reasoning has been explained to you. Um, Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, that's really helpful. That's really helpful because I think, yeah, especially if it's a new scenario for you or a new therapy, you don't
Mm,
necessarily know what to ask or what things to kind of
mm,
consider. So that's really helpful. Thank you for
mm,
that. Is that we've covered a lot of ground today, but I'm
mm.
conscious of the time. I wanted to ask you, is there anything I've not asked you that you feel would be really important to make sure we leave listeners with today?
Oh, that's a really good question. My mind's gone blank, but I think we've covered a lot. I think kind of, I guess the take home message is trust your instincts in terms of if you feel that something's not quite right, it doesn't mean that you're incorrect. It means that your skills or observation are really good, and you've spotted something kind of early on in that process. It's not uncommon for kind of certain members of the family kind of not to see anything, go, they're fine, whereas another family member to go, something's going on. So trust your instincts. There's so much that can be done. Be proactive. There's so much that can be done. And I guess the last thing is, like, we get it that, all the emotions of being a caregiver for an animal, the guilt, am I doing enough? Are they okay? Where do I go? We get it. We really get it. So it can feel really isolating, but there is help out there, both kind of therapeutically and emotionally. Yeah, I guess those are the kind of take home messages.
I love that. That's so helpful. And if people want to reach out to you, are you open to them doing so?
Absolutely. I always love to hear from people, so we can put my contact details. So I'm on Facebook. I've got my personal profile, which I use for work. So you're more than welcome to follow, add. And then my business page is Luisa Greig hyphen canine myotherapist. I'm on Instagram at Luisa Greig underscore canine myotherapist. You can message me on Messenger. My contact details and website are on my Facebook page. My number's on there. My website is www.louisagreg.co.uk. Louisa, Luisa, Greg, Greig. So weird spellings for both. So you can read a little bit more about the therapeutic modalities I offer. My what to expect in a treatment is in there, a little bit about kind of my background, my ethos, the types of conditions I treat, all that kind of stuff. And there's lots of huskies on there because I'm obsessed with huskies and sled dogs.
I love that. You'll have to come back and talk to us all about the sled dogs as well.
Love to. I would love to. Maybe we'll get one. We'll get one to be on the podcast.
Yes, please. Yes, please. I love that. I love that. Louisa, thank you so much. And just for listeners to know, I'll leave all the links in the show notes as well, so you can access all of that from there if you didn't get to write all of that down. I have one last question for you that I ask all of my guests.
Mm,
And that is, what do you feel the dogs in your life, so that could be your own dogs that you've
mm.
had or clients' dogs, have taught you about what it means to be human?
Oh my God, I'm gonna cry. That is such an amazing question and such a big question.
I save it right at the end for you.
Yeah, um, there are teachers in so many ways, I feel, and I think they teach us a lot of qualities that we could be more of, be more dog, right? I
Mm.
think they're unconditional, their capacity to love and joy. And I think if we tune in, we can learn so much from them. My soulmate dog, Fury, my Malamute, taught me so much. She passed in 2020, and kind of on a spiritual level, that's been huge, huge for me.
Mm.
They're just amazing, just incredible, and I feel so blessed to not only have so many dogs in my life to love, all the huskies, but the dogs I work with as well, they truly bring me such joy and fulfillment and learning. And it's that moment of connection is just everything. They're just, yeah, think that answers it.
Yeah, they're pretty wonderful.
Yeah, they're all right.
Louisa, thank you for sharing that. And just thank you for all of your time and your wisdom and your energy today. I'm really grateful you were
Thank
here.
you. Thank you for having me. It's been so wonderful to connect.
Absolutely. And listeners, stay tuned because we are going to be doing some exciting things together as well. And there will be opportunities for more conversations. So lots of more good stuff to come.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining me today for my conversation with Luisa Greig. I hope it has reassured you that there is so much that we can do to support our dogs who are experiencing pain, and so much we can do to support ourselves through this experience. To connect with Luisa and learn more about the therapies that she offers and how to work with her, visit her website, luisagreig.co.uk. I've left this link along with the links to the resources that she mentions in the show notes. And if you're looking for community support, come join us in our free Fetch First Light Facebook group, whose members include heart-centered guardians like you, as well as professionals like Luisa. Fetch First Light is a safe space to connect, to learn, and to grow. We introduce you to our Fetch framework and how you can use it to take control of your dog's health journey. We host monthly live Q&A calls, we share lots of free resources to guide you, and we offer unconditional support. Search for Fetch First Light in your Facebook search bar or just click on the link in the show notes. And like I mentioned, Stacey Renfrey and I will be taking Fetch on the road to the Mind, Body, Spirit Festival in Birmingham this November 14th through 16th, and we can offer listeners 25% off a one-day standard ticket. How amazing is that? If you're interested, use the affiliate link and discount code that is in the show notes. Okay, until next time.